Well, guys, welcome to Berry Share. This is episode number 4. And we're so excited because we have today here in our little home studio someone who is helping with production. And that is our 8-year-old little girl, Ella Christine.
Yeah.
So she's back there, and so hopefully this thing won't freeze. And we'll be rocking and rolling. So we want to give you a little bit of a heads up about what's going on for tonight. Again, this is Berry Share. I'm Brandon Berry, and this is Nicole Berry. And we tonight are going to be talking about keys to communication. You know, communication, as we've been talking about, is how it is the relationship. It is how we express love, intimacy, care, kindness for one another.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking a lot about communication. Honey, what are some of the things that we've been discussing for those that haven't been able to catch up yet?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for being with us tonight. We're so excited to be with you. If you wouldn't mind liking and sharing this video on your timeline, it will allow more people to be connected to what we're doing tonight. The last 4 weeks we've been talking about communication, and so the first week we talked about why communication is so important, and we just said that communication is how God created us. He's a communicative God. He created us to communicate with Him. He communicates with us, and He created us to communicate with each other. And so really communication is the relationship.
That's right.
And we are always, as we're communicating, we're either building intimacy or we are taking it away, we're destructing it. And so it's important to have good communication skills so that we can continue to grow in intimacy with our spouse, with our children, even with coworkers, neighbors, people that we see. We want to continue to build up instead of tear down. So
right.
The first week we did the why of communication. The second week we talked about active listening.
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about active listening.
Yeah, and we talked about leaning in. We talked about having eye contact. We talked about taking notes at sometimes. We talked about all these different ways about active listening. You can check out episode number 2 for that. And then what did we talk about last week?
Last week we talked about love languages and what to do when we're broken apart from any maybe a conflict, or maybe you've just been really busy, and how do you reconnect your relationship with each other. And we talked about how we use those 5 love languages, and actually we said 6. They are acts of service, words of encouragement, physical touch, gifts, and quality time. And we also said food.
That's right.
But how do you use those languages to reconnect, to be able to either get to a point where you can resolve the conflict, or just you haven't seen each other in a while and you need to reconnect so that you can get the communication going back.
You see her doing that little physical touch right here?
He likes physical touch.
Speaking my language. So today we're going to kind of wrap up our communication series, and we're going to be giving you some keys to really some high-level communication. And so just as an outline, here's what you can expect tonight. First, we're going to be talking about a hierarchy of communication. Do you realize that there are better forms of communication than others? And we're going to be unpacking that. And then the second thing that we're going to hit is we're going to be comparing constructive forms of communication versus destructive forms of communication. And then last but not least, we're going to be talking about some signals, some body language signals that are just going to be kind of fun, and hopefully we can give you some homework so that you can even develop some signals with those that you love and that you have to communicate with on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there's just you're not able to actually talk. You're not able to actually say the words that you need to say, and so having some healthy signals to be able to say, hey, we need to get out of here, or you need to hush, or whatever, is really important. So I'm excited about tonight. I hope you're excited. Again, please just like and share this video with your friends. We would love to have people, and please feel free to comment as you're watching tonight. We are watching the comments tonight. We have kind of figured that out, just tell us you're here. Let us know who you are, where you're from. If you have any questions, if you have anything that you're want to know that maybe we haven't hit on this communication series, we would love to hear from you tonight. And so Facebook allows us to see those as they come up, and we will try to keep up with those, and maybe we'll get a few minutes at the end to be able to answer any questions. Okay?
Sounds good. So without any further ado, let's talk about the hierarchy of communication. You know, there are better ways to communicate than others. And I love Thursday nights because this is at least one time a week that I am guaranteed I am going to have face-to-face communication with my bride, my favorite person on the planet. And I get to have this conversation with my bride, and you guys get to listen in on this. And so we want to tell you that face-to-face communication is the highest form of communication. Now, why is that? You may have heard the statistics, and I'm not real sure where they got it, but or who they are. I think it was a Stanford study back in the day, but I'm not sure. You know, people say they can make statistics say anything, but it has been said that 55% of communication is actually body language.
Right. That's over half.
That 35% of communication is tone. So it's that they actually talk about how dog trainers, it doesn't even really matter the words that they say, but their body language, that they are commanding authority, they are acting like they're the alpha male, and then their tone towards the dog, like it doesn't even matter if they're saying peanut butter, but it's like if you say it with authority and with a certain tone, then that dog is going to recognize what you're really trying to say. And I think that that's an indicator that our tone and our body language actually convey the thoughts behind our words sometimes better than our words themselves.
Right, absolutely.
And so that's the reason why is it so 55% body language, 35% tone, and only 15% the words that we say. Is that the right math? It would actually only leave 10%. So it's definitely wrong statistics somewhere. That's some bad communication. So anyway, but you know, in this technological age, and especially with we have spouses that'll travel, and you have friends that have moved away, and it's not always possible to communicate and connect face to face with those that you love. I mean, obviously that is priority, and that's why Nicole and I we try to have dinner together at least 4 or 5 times a week. We try to be as a family around that table in there. We try to have a date night every other Friday, and we have family night the other Friday. And we just try to intentionalize some face-to-face time, some eye-to-eye time, because this is where the real love is felt. Yeah. But let's say I'm away. Let's say I'm on a trip, or let's say you've got some parents that live states away. Then what can you do instead? What's the next thing that would be right below face to face?
Well, I know our kids, they love to FaceTime. They love to FaceTime the grandparents.
That's right.
My dad lives in another state, and so they love to FaceTime Pappy. Brandon was gone a little bit this week. He was out of town for a couple of nights earlier in the week, and they don't want to call him on the phone as much as they want to FaceTime Daddy. And
That's
so
right.
whether it's FaceTime or Skype or Google Hangouts, those kind of avenues are ways that we can not only hear the words that are coming out of our mouth and hear the tone, but we can still see body language. And so when Daddy gets on that phone and he's smiling ear to ear to see his girls, they feel loved by him, and they are able to really gain a better understanding of how he feels towards them, not just through their his words and his tone, but also through the way that he's saying it with his face and with his eyes just bright. And so FaceTime, Skype, those are things that continue to build intimacy. If you're on a business trip, it's much better to FaceTime each other. You know, I had a friend who was actually dating somebody in another country. She was traveling, and she told me that he set up like a FaceTime date where they just watched the same movie, and they were on FaceTime together, so they could see each other and talk and stuff, but they were watching the same movie at the same time so they could experience the same thing. I just thought that was really creative. Cool. What a neat way to be able to stay connected to somebody. So number 2 on the hierarchy. I've been saying it wrong all day.
She's throwing a Y in there. Hierarchy.
Skype or FaceTime, and so we want to do that, especially if there is any sort of conflict going on.
Right.
These top 2 ways are
the go-to.
Really the go-to. I mean, your number 1 thing would be to go to the person and just speak to them face to face. But if for some reason you can't and you need to get something off your chest, and we will be talking more about...
Yeah, teaser. The next series is going to be on conflict resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead and get those boxing gloves out. We are going to learn how to fight fair. We're so excited about that. This is an area actually that we have a lot of passion for, because we believe that if you can learn how to fight fair, then your intimacy is going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
That we actually believe that conflict is an opportunity for you to speak deeper into each other's souls than ever before. And so we're so looking forward to the next series. So stay tuned next week.
Awesome.
Same bad time, same bad channel. Thursday nights at 9 p.m. We're going to be kicking off our conflict resolution series.
Yep.
But we digress.
Yep.
Number 3 on the hierarchy of communication list is the phone.
Telephone. Give them a call. If you've got to talk to somebody, if you can't get face to face, you can't do a Skype, call them. Just talk to them. That still allows you, a phone call still allows you to be able to hear the tone in their voice. And so whatever they're saying, whether it's good or bad, maybe there is conflict and they live far away or they're away and you just got to get it taken care of. The phone call is still a very, very valid and important part of communication.
That's right. You know, and this is such a big deal that we actually have written this down as part of our core values and our MO at the church that we pastor. And the other day I had to take some of my own medicine. One of my colleagues, I was just getting. Do you ever just get bugged by something that one of your coworkers does, and so this particular coworker was just doing something that was just kind of getting under my skin, and I wrote a zinger of an email, okay, and it was convincing this person, why they were wrong and this and I'm telling you, my heart started beating out of my chest, like I wanted to press send, and it was like God would not let me.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. If you do that, and if you go to email, I'm kind of getting out of our order a little bit, but if you go ahead and you fire off that mad email, let me tell you, email is by and large a horrible form of communication.
Yeah.
Because it's so hard. Most of the time you're composing it quickly, and it's so hard to convey tone. It's very easy to be misunderstood, especially if you haven't clarified it. If people don't feel like you've got that heart-to-heart connection with them, they don't know where you're coming from. Man, you want to talk about suspicions and fear? It's like that runs rampant in email land.
Right.
And so because of that, I try to make it my personal policy always to, whenever I feel any kind of ick with anybody, if there's any kind of the potential for miscommunication, then I am like, I will not email. I'm going to use one of these higher forms of communication.
So what did you do?
So I picked up the phone. Now, it was great because I kind of had my outline already written in my email. But here was the thing. Because it was the phone, I asked the person how they were doing. I talked to them about their family. And then extemporaneously, I realized, hey, wait, this person has has just gone through something that I'm about to go through, I should ask them a question, and I should honor them with my question because they have so much to give me. And I was remembering what an awesome person this was as I was talking to them, and then I was like, I'm not even mad anymore, because I had reconnected. And then when I went to kind of just as a, hey, by the way, there's this thing that's been kind of getting on my nerves, and do you mind if I tell you about it? And sure. And then it was like it was not even a thing.
Right.
And I felt so silly that I was about to fire off that mean email that might have built, a wall up.
It could have
between.
really escalated something that wasn't even there, or built something that wasn't even there.
So praise God, I picked up the phone and reconnected, and it was a really life-giving experience. And I just want to encourage everybody, we just want to encourage you to do that. Don't resort to email to say what you want to say. And I know there's a lot of fear there, but I'm telling you, if you can pick up the phone, and if you can put, if you can use one of those love languages and affirm the other person and see the value in them, then it'll transform it.
Yeah.
And you'll actually look forward to being able to communicate with these folks. So so what, face to face, then Skype or FaceTime.
Yeah.
Then we have the phone.
Right.
And then number 4, we're gonna go old school on you. All right. So if you're watching this with somebody, look at your neighbor and say, old school.
Old school.
And this is the thing. We're going to say this is number 4, the written letter. That's right.
Handwritten.
Handwritten letter. There is something about a handwritten thank you note that just goes a long way. And I mean, sure, you could spend the same amount of time typing up an email. But the fact that you got out pen and paper, that you wrote it down, because let's be honest, in this digital age,
it's hardly ever happening anymore.
That's right. And so now, when you get a letter that someone wrote on paper,
with a pen,
with an ink pen,
right?
And they mailed it to you, they took a stamp and they took the time. What is that? It's actually speaking a language of honor.
Yeah.
Now get this. This is kind of a new definition of honor that I've been trying out, and it's this: if we want to honor the other people that we know, then this is it. You are choosing to treasure the other person. And I just believe that one of the ways that we can choose to treasure one another is to write each other notes.
Right, actually write them. And so whether it's a thank you, and of course, again, going back to even a thank you, if someone gives you a gift, if someone does something special for you, they serve you in some way, and you want to say thank you, so many times we'll just get like a text, like, hey, thanks for the baby shower you just threw me, or, thank you for dinner, it was really nice. And there are some times where, you just left someone's house for dinner and you just you've already told them thank you face to face as you're walking out the door, but then you can shoot off a text. That's something different. But,
Especially,
a handwritten letter,
Right.
we're so blessed to pastor such wonderful people at our church. And I mean, they almost weekly do something really special to bless us. And that's just something that you and I have really worked on, is just saying, telling them thank you face to face, and just saying like, hey, I really appreciated it when you spoke that to me, or thank you so much for that kind word that you gave me, for the money you handed me, whatever it is. We are just showered with love from our people. They're just so generous and kind. But a handwritten letter, it's amazing to me how many people, I'll hand them a handwritten letter at church just to tell them thank you for whatever they've done. And it just took me a few seconds, really. I mean, a couple minutes of just getting my mind right and writing it. But like, they are just like, you wrote me a handwritten thank you?
Yeah.
And
it matters.
It matters. It's so old school, but it's so impactful.
It is. And it doesn't take that much time. I just encourage everybody, go get a packet of thank you notes. I mean, get some personalized ones with your name on it, stationery, and just get in the habit of doing that. You will not regret that.
I mean, I think one of the most impactful things that we've done as pastors is writing handwritten notes to our leaders and our volunteers. And I would say, you know, at the very beginning of life as church planters in the first few years, we were really, really good at it. As we keep adding these more kids, it gets less and less. But every time we still do it, it's very, very important to them. And it's important to us because it helps us to really think through what we're going to say. Because before you actually write it down, I don't know if y'all are like this, but Brandon, before he writes the letter, he writes like a rough draft. And so
I type it up, and then I mess with it, and then I plan it out, and because I really think that there's power in the written word. There's clarity that can be brought, and I think especially if you're going to write it in ink, then there's some intentionality that can be brought to it. And I've found that even the Holy Spirit will kind of get on me sometimes, and I'll get kind of this spirit of like prophetic encouragement will just kind of, and I'll be able to just kind of really touch heartstrings as I'm writing, and I'll feel it even as I'm writing. So I know it's just another way that we can actually minister to one another.
So the written letter. The next one would be email, and so we've already touched on that a little bit, but really email should be reserved for encouragement. It's always okay to encourage someone via email.
That's right. Like, you're awesome. Thanks so much for that meeting. Man, that was an incredible meeting you just did. But you know, like or whatever it is. I mean, just encouraging somebody.
Always cool through email, especially if it's just something small, or maybe you're not going to see that person, or it would be even awkward to say it like, "Oh my God, dude, that was such an awesome meeting." You know, sometimes something like that in email would be good. But also make sure that whenever you're emailing somebody, that you are emailing them about information that it's almost impossible to be misunderstood.
That's right.
And so if you're talking about something of a heart matter, it's probably not something you want to write in an email, if you can help it. But instructions, directions. I
mean, let's say that you had a great meeting, and then and so everybody, you know, is getting on the whiteboard, and you figure out what everybody's doing, and you're confirming, and you're doling out, you know, tasks and responsibilities, action plans, deadlines, and all that. Well, then you do want to, for purpose of confirmation, send an email that is going to, in writing, confirm and kind of hold everybody accountable for what yeses were said during the meeting. And so that's a good use of it. But guys, if there's any kind of heart ick, and never rebuke over email. I mean, it is toxic to a culture, and especially if you're delivering bad news to an entire group of people, and you're doing it via email. Like, I mean, it
just leaves such an
it creates a closed communication culture instead of an open communication culture, and that's just not something that you want to be. We want to keep these lines of communication open in any healthy organization, any business, any church, and any family. And finally, we move into even below email is text.
Come on.
And below text, we believe, is social media.
Social media.
Unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say that really social media is probably the least productive way to communicate. It is the least impactful in that...
In our humble opinion here.
Yeah, that you may be broadcasting your opinion to all of your friends, and it may even be something that gets shared by other people, and so your reach gets farther and further. But so many people use social media for just passive-aggressive behavior. They're mad at someone, and they'll be tweeting something like, you know, I hate it when such and such doesn't do the dishes and leaves them all for me. Awkward, you know, something like that. Or, you know, I mean, and
like call outs, but they don't actually mention names.
Right.
And it's just, and
we see that all the time.
You know, we've got an honorary daughter that lives with us. She's 21, and man, when she was finishing high school and all this, I mean, she was telling me about the crazy passive aggressive behavior that was going on.
Yeah.
And it's just rampant.
Right.
And so we're trying to be intentional about teaching our kids how to use these higher forms of communication before they go, and maybe confirm it with some of the lower.
Yeah, I would say so. Social media is like the lowest of low, and right above that is text message. Text messages should only be used, again, for encouragement, for something that's easily said, or that you just, I mean, I don't need to necessarily tell Brandon face to face, hey, I'll meet you at Chick-fil-A at 11:15. Maybe I've already told him that in the morning before he left, like, we're going to do lunch, we're going to meet at Chick-fil-A at 11:15. But then I can follow it up with a text message.
Reminders, grocery lists.
Yeah.
I mean, even we were texting back and forth today about, some of the content for what we'll be talking about tonight. And so, I mean, obviously, that goes without saying, you guys are smart people. But I think it's good for us to remember that. So to recap, first we want to do face-to-face, then Skype or FaceTime, okay, then the phone, then an old school written letter, then email, then text, then social media.
Yeah.
And so now we want to move to the second key of communication that we said we were going to get into, and that's, we want to equip you to be able to have constructive communication rather than destructive communication. And when I think of destructive communication, we had a moment with our 8-year-old this morning, and I was talking to Ella in the garage, and we were talking about the definition of gossip. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been in church most of my life, and I don't think I've ever heard a sermon about gossip. Mm-mm. But let me give you a really good working definition of gossip. Gossip is talking to someone about a problem when they are not a part of that problem or its solution. Okay, so if I've got an issue with Coley, if I go talk to you about what's going on with Coley, and I'll be like, I can't believe she did this. Okay, now that's gossip, unless I'm going to you so that you are going to give me some wisdom. Let's say you're a trusted mentor, and I know it's not going to go any further than you. And if I'm coming to you for wisdom on how I'm going to go back to the person I have a problem with, then it's not gossip. It's me seeking some wisdom. Okay? And you're actually helping me to be a part of the solution. Okay? And so at that point, it's not gossip. And so if you're the person that is the recipient of gossip, if you just happen to be the person that other people are coming to and bashing their friends to, chances are birds of a feather flock together. If somebody's coming to you and bashing somebody, it's probably because they know you've been bashing people too.
Right.
And so that's where we've got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, am I using my forms of communication to tear people down, or am I using it to build people up?
Right.
And so I remember reading that in a book somewhere about what gossip is, and just, I know that I don't want to tear people down with my words. Yeah. And you want to know where this is in Scripture? It is in Matthew 18. It says, if you have aught with your brother, then you are to go to your brother. Okay, you're not to talk about your brother, you're to talk to your brother. And then if your brother won't listen to you, then what do? You go and you get a mediator and you bring them in so that they can go with you. Listen, that's a little bit of next week. We'll get into that. That's part of putting the boxing gloves on and fighting fair. But what we want to tell you is that instead of gossip, we want to equip you to be a Barnabas, to be an encourager.
Absolutely.
And so, honey, when I say that we need to use our words, our communication for encouragement, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I just think about the scripture of that there's power of life and death in the tongue. And so when I want to build you up, I speak words of affirmation to you because A, I know that that's your love language, and B, I don't think there's anybody out there who wouldn't love a few words of encouragement. And so the words that I speak, the tone with which I speak them, can always be chosen. I can choose those things and choose to build you up with those things. And so I have to really, concentrate sometimes, because if there is a conflict, or if there is something that I would rather just change about you, or it's easy for me to tear you down with my words, and so just as easy. I mean, it's way easier for me to speak words of death or complaining, nagging, telling you, even with my tone, that you aren't good enough, that
judgment, manipulation. I mean, we can do all of that, and that's some of those destructive forms of communication.
Yeah.
But instead, if we're actually able to, as I was discussing with somebody last night, if we're able to look past whatever issues that they are, and if we're able to see that precious person that we love,
right,
that's on the inside of whatever the issue is, and we can speak life to that, then I'm telling you, it'll be like the Incredible Hulk, the superhero that's on the inside of that person will come from the inside out as you speak life to them.
Absolutely.
And let me just say, as a real quick aside, as encouragement, sometimes that's given compliment, but let me just tell you this: a comparative compliment is really not a compliment.
Yeah.
So what if I said this? You are so much better looking than your sister. Okay, now Nicole doesn't have a sister, but like,
for you.
think about how that comes across. Like, whenever you compare, it just puts a slime on it. What it is you're actually using another person, and you're having to push them down in order to push the other person up.
Yeah.
And so, just comparative compliments. You're better. You're greater. You're smarter. You're the best. You're the
worst. You're horrible.
Yeah. Whenever I would just encourage you. Could you do a fast this week of comparative language when, in terms of talking about other people and talking to other people? Could we do that? I think it's time for another challenge, honey.
Challenge
comparative language. All right. Okay. Anytime I use something that's comparative, or anytime you use something comparative, we're going to do another $1 in the jar.
Okay.
All right, and we're going to give it to our missionary friends. Okay.
So not only are you saying this with your spouse or the person you might be in a relationship with, but how about with your kids? We have 4 children, and it's really, really important that we do not tell one child that she's better at something than the other person, than the other kid, or that we love one of them the most, or we love one of them more. Even if you're just joking, and sometimes people joke and you're like, I love you the most, and then they'll go and tell the brother, I love you the most, and they'll go tell the other, don't tell your siblings, I love you the most, you're my favorite. So even joking about that can really just sow seeds of dissension. And we've experienced just such a need to be conscious about this with our 4 girls, and just saying, like, we love all of you. We love you differently because you're different people, but we don't have one that we love more than the other. Right. And so it's really important, especially with your kids. If you have more than one kid, even if you don't have more than one kid, and you're telling your only child they're the best. They're the smartest kid in the class. They're the best soccer player on the team.
Yeah, you're setting your kid up for some difficult relationships.
Yeah, if they're here and they're the best, they're the smartest, they're number one, and then it's really hard for them to have a humble spirit about what's going on in their life. And even if they are really gifted, and I mean, Brandon and I would probably say Brandon is one of the most gifted people that I've met in that, academically.
Is that comparative?
I don't know if it's one of the most. I don't know if that's comparative or not, but
right. I'll let you slide.
I'll say you're high up there in the rankings. I've never met someone who is just academically and musically and athletically and just spiritually gifted in that way. But even that, if your kid is just off the charts. Gifted, and maybe you have another kid who's just pretty average at things but does well, how do you encourage each of them? How do you encourage each of them to reach their own personal potential, and not doing it through comparing the two, or comparing however many kids you have. But we're about to start watching the Olympics, and it's going to be such a neat thing. But can you imagine? I was just thinking about, like, could you imagine having a child who's actually going to be at the Olympics, but having multiple children, but one of them is an Olympian? And how do you really encourage all of your children that they were all made in God's image, that they are all gifted and talented and beautiful and important, that they all have a purpose in their life? When you have one who's so high and above, gifted in this particular area, can we as a community just start working on compliments that build up everybody? That I can give you a compliment and it doesn't tear anybody else down.
That's good.
I can give you a compliment and you can feel good about it without feeling the slime of having comparison. I want to give my kids those compliments. I want them to feel good when I compliment them.
And I think also, as you were just talking about that, I was thinking about, giftedness can be one area that we give compliments.
Right.
Beauty, the things that get attention in our, if you're strong, or you're beautiful, or you're gifted, or you're talented. But in our society, those things do get celebrated. Mm-hmm. But I just think, what we try to celebrate a whole lot more than the giftedness of our kids, mm-hmm. is when they exhibit the fruits of the Spirit.
Right,
when they're kind. When there's kindness, when there's joy, when there's peace, when there's love, when they're patient, when they're
honest,
when they're cleaning up and taking initiative, and they're being kind, and they're hard working. It's just like those things are so much more important to us, right. than whether or not they make straight.
Right.
The last key to communication we want to talk about, and you may have been picking up on this along the way, is we've been trying to practice some signals to our kids while we've been filming this. Yeah. Because one of them unexpectedly arrived home in the middle of this, and we're trying to, without interrupting the flow, give some signals and some eye contact, right. signals so that they know what we would like for them to do, yeah. without having to actually say it,
without breaking it. But yeah, grandma just dropped one of them off, and she's excited to see us, and she has a few things, but we're looking at them like, you probably see me go. They're standing right outside the camera, trying to get our attention, and yeah. So we will be with you girls in just a few minutes, and we love you. We'll be there in a few minutes. So, but signals. You're a married person. You're in a dating relationship. You have kids. You're in public places with these people. How do you communicate when you can't communicate?
Like you're at a dinner party and one of your spouses is talking really a lot and you're ready to go. Okay? And
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's never happened. Anyway, so we have a signal.
We do.
We have a signal that we have talked about beforehand. We know what it is. And that signal communicates to me that it's time to go. Yeah. Because I'm usually long-winded. And Nicole has a much better barometer on whether or not our kids are about to melt down.
Yeah. So I mean, in our profession, we have, the opportunity and the privilege to get to be with a lot of people, either have them in our home or go and be with them outside of the house. And there are just times where even if we don't have our kids, that I just have to say, like, okay, it's time to wrap it up. I guess I just have like a reading on how things are going, whether it's not just me saying I'm tired, but sometimes it's like, okay, I can tell they're getting tired and they're just being very polite. Right. So it's just time to kind of. So we won't tell you our signal, because if we did, that would really be awkward when you saw us do it when we're with you.
But think of something. I mean, you could scratch your eyebrow. Just whatever. You could do the old like.
I mean, well, you're not going to be super obvious, but it could be something as simple as playing with your hair or playing with your necklace or even playing with your ring or earrings or something. It could be something like a little bit more obvious where you should put your hand on your partner's leg and maybe just tap him twice. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This is your homework, though. I want you, if you don't already have a signal with your partner, I would love for you to come up with a signal this week, something that you were not able to speak. It can't be, let's go home. It can't be that. It's going to be something that the people that you're with aren't going to recognize it as a symbol or as a signal. And just if you don't already have one, come up with one this week. It will save you lots of turmoil as you're trying to exit gracefully from a situation. So, but signals are super important, and really they allow us to just, like I said, kind of get out of things gracefully, or just there have been so many times where when we're
we help each other out,
talking to each other, and one of the things that we were going to talk about a little bit is we did have a signal when he was talking, when he would get into like this flow, and it was just kind of at the point where I was like, we've got to kind of reel it back in, that I would kind of touch his leg, but that could be super awkward because I like to just touch him. So he doesn't know if I'm just touching him because I love him and I'm loving what he's saying and I'm actively listening to him, or if I'm touching his leg because I want him to stop. And so we have had some seriously awkward times where I'm like this and he's like, his flow is cut off, and I'm really just trying to actively listen.
And we have a miscommunication, and she's just actually trying to love me, and I'm thinking she was wanting to interrupt me and to stop me from doing this, and I'm confused. And so it's very clear that you guys get on the same page. And so I would encourage you to not make just putting your hand on a leg or the whole like kick somebody under the table. Well, what if you accidentally touch leg to leg under the table? Well, then that's miscommunication. So do something that's a little bit more obvious that you're on the same page with. Again, these are just some keys to communication. Number one, the hierarchy of communication. We encourage you to go high before you go low. Number two, practice some constructive communication with encouragement rather than gossip, which is talking to somebody about a problem who is not a part of that problem or its solution. And we encourage you to instead be an encourager and give compliments, but don't give comparative compliments.
Right.
And then finally, why don't you come up with some signals and make it fun, because that's going to help you in social situations and just help you to just be a person that communicates and conveys love in everything that we say and everything that we do.
That's right.
Well, baby, I love you, and I'm so encouraged just by this interaction, this communication, and I hope you guys were too. This is Barry Share, and just want to thank you for allowing us to share with you. And at this point, we would love for you to share with us. And so, what kind of questions do you have? At this point, we're gonna go to the computer and see the comments and see, what is this sparking in you? Do you have any thoughts about comparative compliments, or about encouragement, or about the hierarchy, or about a signal? What would you like? What would you like to discuss? We'll take that for the next 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll call it a night.
Yep.
All
right. So we've got one question here on one of our social media feeds, and it's saying, how do you know which part of the hierarchy to use at what time? Well, I would just say this. First of all, always try to go higher. Stay at the top, face to face, is the number one. You would always try to do that first. And then texting, social media is the last ditch effort to communicate with somebody. So, and especially when you are trying to connect with somebody on a specific issue, less people hearing it is better. So social media. But if you're trying to broadcast something that's just general hey, I love strawberries in the summer and I just found this great place to go pick strawberries with my kids. Social media is that kind of place, obviously, to share that kind of information. If you're inviting someone specifically to come strawberry picking with you, maybe you want to call them on the phone and talk to them. Maybe you want to even...
Because think about that. I mean, a lot of people don't even know that. It's like you invite somebody on social media in front of the whole world. Well, there is such a thing as jealousy.
Right.
There's such a thing as envy. There's such a thing as people feeling lonely and wanting to be invited. And so, it's just one of the ways that we can love our other friends by just keeping private conversations private.
Yeah.
And then keeping public conversations public.
Yeah. So well, cool. Well, guys, we are so excited about like Brandon said, sharing this opportunity with you to talk about communication. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Next week, we are going to start our new series on conflict resolution, and we want to give you some awesome tips, some practical advice on how to fight fairly. I think that for Brandon and I, one of the best things that we've ever learned how to do is how to resolve conflict in our marriage, because it comes up almost every single day. And so if you're normal, like we're normal, you're going to have things that rub you wrong, and you want to learn how to handle them appropriately, not sweep them under the rug, not let them build up and explode, not be super aggressive, but how do you handle yourself in different relationships appropriately when you've been offended. So make sure to join us in August for that. Our next one is going to be coming up next Thursday at 9 o'clock right here on Facebook Live. We appreciate you. Please like and share this video. You can go ahead and do that after we're done on the timeline, and we will connect with you soon. Also, one more thing.
What's up?
I just wanted to say we have our new website up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Berryshare.com
That's right.
is live,
What?
We are so excited about that. We've had some people working really hard on that for us, and we are so grateful and thankful for the help on that. But go check it out. Go check out berryshare.com. It's not completely filled up with everything yet, but more is coming. More blog posts, more videos. We're going to start having courses on marriage courses, premarital courses, parenting courses. We are so excited about what's coming up on berryshare.com. Join us there. You can go ahead and subscribe on the side there. We want to get some freebies into your hands. We're working on some awesome things there to be able to bless you and continue to bring value to your life. So thanks for joining us tonight, and we thank you very much. God bless.
All right. Take care.